Good evening, everybody. It's Lorraine Alternative Homesteading on November 11, 2024. And I'm going to read a little bit from Robert Duncan's book, How to Tame a Demon. It's a short practical guide to organized intimidation, stalking, electronic harassment. So this is copyright 2014. And this is a book that he placed online. So it's on a Proton drive. So if anybody wants a copy of it, you can email me at alternativehomesteading@gmail.com and I can send you the link. But I won't be placing these links into YouTube. YouTube tags it, and sometimes they'll actually take down the video when you've got links there. So anyway, let me just show you what it looks like. It's a really ugly it's a really ugly cover. It's a little scary, ugly cover. Here, check this out. How to Tame a Demon. Alright, well, let me just scroll up here. This is what it looks like. And I'm going to read. There are clickable links online that take you here. The dedication is to the heroes, those who care about humankind's future, freedom, due process, and brave enough to take on powerful, corrupt institutions which lead to tyranny. And the table of contents online has clickable links, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to what is their game? Okay, so let me just... And this gorgeous little kitty is a mini oil painting by Jeff Claudio. What is their game? Every action a TI can do damns them. It is a checkmate before the target even realizes they're at war with an unknown enemy. It's not exactly fair, but neither is war or life in general. There are many experiments and reasons for doing these horrific, long-term crimes against humanity in order to sample points of culture, languages, and countries, but let's look at some of the most brutal programming and silent... I don't know if you could say this word on TheTube. You know, it's the... it's sort of like unaliving. It's a special word that begins with the letter A. Sounds like ass. Methods in the United States government is doing to create false flag fear in the general public. So what they did is they created a simple flow chart of how to create a unaliving or programmed, you know what. So I'm going to show you what the diagram looks like, and then I'm going to fast forward. They have a basic programming used for false flag T. I'm going to say T for the terror word, okay? So this is what it looks like. There's a flow chart here. And this is a book. It's for educational purposes only. And this book is online, How to Tame a Demon by Robert Duncan. And then he says, for details on the programs of mind control, read the book Project Soul Catcher Volume 2, which I've read a few chapters, and you can search for it by just typing Duncan in line, or maybe I'll just add some of it to this description. The assumption of life goals. We, society, generally agree on certain life goals. Excel in a job, seek happiness and longevity, And the mind control aggressors understand these general metrics of success, for which one strives and uses this knowledge in their mission to destroy someone, break down their will to resistance, and ultimately control or dispose of them. These tactics and techniques are to make the target irrelevant in the participation of the worldwide collective consciousness that is fundamental in creating a viable future. These life goals are what the TI is trying to keep or restore in their struggle against the secret forces of destruction. Goals of a targeted individual. Once the target realizes that they're in the program, they have immediate goals in response to their pain and terrorism. The first is to make people believe them. This is a difficult task to prove to people of what they're experiencing, and next they want to stop the targeting, get relief, and their lives back. They seek answers and to ask, quote unquote, why me? Who is behind it? How is it done? And in the beginning they seek the simplest answers, but after a few years or more investigation, they realize it is much, much bigger than they first realized, and the politics and technology is far more complex and sophisticated than they first thought. The controller's end game. What are they up to? The answer is kind of disappointing. Everyone thinks their lives are the most important, but it isn't true to the war machine. TIs are just a data point among tens of thousands. The short answer is data collection of mind control practice, improve the victory of all possible outcomes, plausible, deniable assassinations, I guess I'm going to say the word, false flag terrorism, and to incite wars. There is much more than one purpose for the torture and mind control experiments and operations. Traps to avoid. The most difficult problem for the average person is to avoid the traps and obvious moves one makes when first indoctrinated into the program. Unfortunately, this war game has 60 years of study of how the target will react and what counter moves and counterintelligence can be done to the target. It's a game of damned if you do and damned if you don't. This book hopes to demonstrate the trade-offs of decisions the target needs to make in order to help the TI understand the potential consequences of those decisions. Here's a basic quick list and common traps a TI often falls for. Avoid the addiction of drama and gossip on internet support groups. Website information is good, but TIs rarely get along or can organize themselves in numbers great enough to get mainstream media attention. That is absolutely true, which is why I never get on those TI conference calls ever again. I will never get on those calls again. Do not live with other TIs except under rare conditions. The stress is caused by everything, and the induced paranoia and destabilization of emotions always ends in dysfunction and accusations in the group. Encourage new friendships by not talking about your situation too much, but also avoid isolation. Don't lose your finances by moving or spending too much time on technical research for passive or active shielding unless you're an expert. A typical Faraday cages do not work, like those built with chicken wire. I have to figure that out. I've got chicken wire. Other types have had some success with some TIs. Stress relievers are very important, such as hypnosis, sleeping with music, positive affirmations, and surround yourself while emotionally sensitive with positive people. Well, that's sort of hard to do around here. There's a bunch of morons that live around here. Some TIs can be a positive influence, but others will turn on you. Oh yeah, we've seen that one. How about that woman that said, sent me a nasty email that I was speaking derogatorily against overweight people, which was totally BS. Well, you know, there are a lot of perpetrators. There are a lot of pretend friends. There are a lot of infiltrators and stuff. And that's basically what they do. So don't assume because you have a common goal that people can act respectfully. Oh, and I just wanted to say that I hid the video that I posted about that woman who ratted out the squirrel Peanut and the raccoon Fred, because I literally received more than 4,000 responses, and most of them were bots. And it was constant, it was non-stop, horrible stuff about this woman. So I hid it. So in case you're looking for it, I can, I've made it private, but I can add certain, I can tag certain people in it if you still want to view it. But it is hidden right now. TIs with more emotional developments will be a better support group. Choose wisely. Be honest with shrinks. Why? Use only private shrinks and not public ones. I love the way he calls them shrinks. Even though the government under the Un-American Patriot Act can grab your records, at least some government agencies can't. Later in this book, you will understand your choices. Read on. Do not believe the lies of the handlers and who they are and what they will do in the negotiation phase to release you from the program. Well, I've never had any negotiation phase. They totally skipped over that phase with me. Use sanity checks, 24-hour loop security cameras, and audio meters in cars and home, video of compasses of magnetic field readings and voltmeter readings on the body, video of oscilloscope readings on the body and spectrum analyzers. Never commit an act of violence against yourself or others unless you are in a revolution or at war. There is no way as of yet to show that your private thoughts are communicated by other people unless you can recruit some of the world's best scientists and have millions of dollars to spend. Now you have to remember this was dated 2014. 10 years later, it may actually be possible, okay? While this is very disturbing, proof cannot be gathered in this way for the typical TI. It is a personal experience that only those in the program will experience and know to be true. TIs think their experiences are personal and find the reason why they're targeted and who they are. You, the TI, needs to understand that this is part of a game they play with you. Frequently asked questions. The following questions are typically asked from TIs. The answer to many of these questions are still unclear, but for the quick understanding of the options a TI has and to understand the consequences of their decisions, this format and summary answers provide a concise foundation for new people brought into the program. And for any of you guys that hear that my voice, my diction is a little slurred, it's because these effers have been targeting my tongue. This is how depraved, sick lunatics they are. A TI, quote unquote, is an abbreviation for targeted individual. A TI will experience defamation of character in their community, harassment, electronic torture, directed energy attacks, break-ins, organized stalking, gaslighting, or a combination of the previous. There are many reasons a government targets a particular person. If you've ever worked for the government with a security clearance, you will periodically get spied on and tested on to see if you will speak about secrets that you know, or if you're still aligned with that country's values. You will be set up, discredited, or unalived if the answer is not what they want. The U.S. is the epicenter of the thrust for world domination and absolute control. This is dated 2013. I've never worked for a government agency. Nobody I know works for a government agency, actually. Many other people are just mind control test victims who provide practice for the armature spies and data points for these newer technologies to control society, economics, and world politics. Why me? Did I do something wrong? This is usually the first question asked by a target for these high-tech projects. There are many answers. In the 1960s, the gifted children who were intelligent and creative were brought into the program. Oh, how thrilling. These qualities are probably still used, but in any covert program, the patterns must be hidden from the general public and dependent researchers. Counterintelligence must be considered to hide the development and use from U.S. enemies and the progress made in mind control for enhancement or deprecation of the targets. There seems to be certain sectors and classifications that are outliers in the data that we have collected on the population of targeted individuals. People who have a drug abuse history live alone in an apartment complex. Whistleblowers, enemies of the state, like peace protesters. Oh, you're an enemy of the state if you like peace. And so-called dissidents become statistical outliers in the study. The government agencies try to make it as diverse as possible throughout the social strata for data collection. Oh, you know, they like the cat ladies. That's right. The cat ladies, at least that's what the Malibu Police Department like to call people who like cats. Cat ladies. New TIs get the shame game and think back to who might have power to put them in the torture and slow kill list. It's a distraction of the truth. Do serial killers have a pattern? Well, they actually do. Why are you asking that stupid question? They actually do have a pattern. The U.S. government is like a serial killer in terms of collecting data on every walk of life to understand the kill capabilities and disablement of individuals when they use these programs in war and peacetime. The shame game is used to extract secrets and blackmail on the target. The world is always at war. The databases are huge, like a human genome project or the human mind control project, but this is important for the next generation of cognitive warfare. Again, just a reminder, this book is dated 2014. Some researchers say the intelligence agencies involved in mind control are only looking for unusual minds for their cognitive databases and how to re-educate the target for conformity of thought. And as a way to hide their experimentation on the fringe elements of society, those that are awake. Well, you're not hiding it very much. You're not all that intelligent if you're targeting unusual minds, because we've already figured out that you're after certain personality characteristics. Yes. Yes, people who have the INFJ, INTJ, and IFPJ personality traits they're targeting. Practical advice. Oh, they're actually called empaths, okay? the empaths. Because you know what? Psychopaths, sociopaths, narcissists, they have no empathy. So they have to study it in others because they just don't get it yet. So that it takes decades and decades for them to try to figure it out and re-educate themselves. Practical advice. One of the primary tactics of these mind control problems is to lead the TI down a false path of blame of themselves. A particular group or person leading them to believing that the group or person is behind their misery and harassment. Don't jump to conclusion right away. Remember, voices can be transformed and mimicked and thereby false correlations created. How long will I be in this program? And this is the sad truth, and Dr. Duncan tells us right here, usually the programs are for life. But the torture phase of the program generally lasts a few years. I don't know. Mine's been 12 years so far. It's been total torture here in Kentucky, so it's 5.5 years here. It is different for every TI. Some, very few, get released from the program other than through DEATH, but their lives are in shambles, of course. There is no known way to buy your way out of the program once in it. For those that have escaped the program, it is because they figured out all the psychological mechanisms of mind control and their handlers just gave up on them. Knowledge of thyself and the human condition is power. So I must be doing something wrong. I've got to figure out how to do something differently. Practical advice for survival of these programs is to stay grounded, be logical, analytical, educate yourself, and use the scientific method. How many people have had these experiences? Now remember, this is 2014. We already know that we're up to about 4+ million people, okay? So he's saying this is a difficult question. People who have come forward can only be tracked by internet groups. Those that are too disabled due to the experimentation are not counted. Wow. So the estimates are based on several sample points. It is at a minimum, okay, this is ridiculous, 10,000 people. And at the maximum, every human is affected in small and large ways. The count is based not on small influences over the population, but those that are direct torture victims of the mind control technologies. These experiments of control of the minds and masses using direct electromagnetic stimulation over the population started in early 1965. More and more are indoctrinated depending on war and black budgets. Many TIs become too scrambled to understand what is happening to them and hence can't be counted. That is absolutely absurd. We already know that the ACLU, through their FOIA request of my favorite Bureau of Investigation, Trapped in a Black Box, Growing Terrorism, Watch Listening, and Everyday Policing, in 2016, and this is dated 2014, there were 900,000 people on the list. It is estimated now that there are 4+ million in the U.S. alone. What is their agenda? For the TI, there are many purposes for their handlers and scientific data of behavioral responses. The ultimate goal has been the same since the dawn of human tribes. Conquest, control the population, and ultimately world domination. They are using a swath of cultures and language to perfect the ultimate mind control weapon technology on the population. The handlers are practicing the various techniques to control their subjects, and the scientists use the data to evaluate the effectiveness of their technologies and techniques. There are, of course, multiple purposes: creating programmed assassins in order to induce fear in the rest of the masses, so they will give up their gun rights and allow the government to monitor all communication for fear of the T's. This is a new technology, but a very old false flag strategy to manipulate the average people. Remember, 95% of government employees are morally good. No. That's so wrong. And have no idea how they're just cogs and pawns in this complex game. I don't know if being purposefully ignorant gets them into heaven, but I don't assume that they're consciously aware of the bigger picture any more than the SS soldier killing the Jews or just following orders. TIs make the mistake that the police or FBI, federal police, would know about these technologies and strategies. Please don't fall for level 1 and contact them. Okay, well, I've already fallen for level 1. I'm 20 times over. This only creates the track record that many others have fallen for, discrediting the TI. Well, when you provide evidence, then they discredit you even more. And then allows further programming in case they are successful Manchurian candidates for the 4 other major news channels. It's far more unlikely that they will release you from the program after such events of discrediting. There have been several FBI and police officers who have been put into the program. I believe that. Even with their clout, they could not get help. Seeking help or assistance questions. Why won't my family and friends believe me? Well, I'll tell you that some of my family and friends believe me. Articulation of a complex topic is important. Credibility is based on accuracy of grammar and spelling, even if you are a scientist. It is difficult for the TI to eloquently explain the experience, given how they will disrupt the mind and capabilities of thought. On top of that, people in society have been conditioned to believe that people who make such claims are crazy, right? Crazy is just a discrediting word, as well as the words conspiracy theorists. This was intentional to hide these secret activities from 98% of the public. The Pentagon released a paper that said they could falsely imprison up to 1.6% of the population without a successful revolution due to the rest of the public having sympathy for the cause. That sort of reminds me of the article that I started reading, When Human Experimentation is Criminal. Let's see. The U.S. imprisons more than any other country per capita at roughly 1.3%. And it's much higher now. Like, we're 10 years forward, it's higher than that. There are about 1.6% of potential people that could be put into secret mind prisons. There are many ways to propagandize and deceive those who haven't experienced the true nature of their handlers. Yes, we're all human animals according to the CIA documents, and they're correct. Yes, it's frustrating that something so obvious to you, a TI, others can't perceive. Try to imagine explaining color to a completely colorblind person. You can't do it. You can't do it if they don't have the neural wiring for color perception. This is a really good point he's making, because essentially psychopaths are not wired. They're not wired to feel, perceive, empathy. They're not wired. They think differently. They will never think like an empath, okay? Try to get sympathy from a person who has never experienced long-term duration torture. Or similarly, try to explain calculus to someone with only basic arithmetic education. It takes many years of study and research. Most don't have the patience to understand the complexity. Don't get angry at them. They are unaware and happy with that. Ignorance is bliss. I added that. They have been conditioned to believe such technologies do not exist. Try to slowly encourage them to read articles and books on the topic. And I'm going to add, show them the patents. Read the patent. Who invented the patent? What the patent is alleged to do and perform, and why it was created. It is so blatant and obvious. Why doesn't society stop it? Until you have been tortured, you can't possibly understand what it's like. Unless you have been raped, you can't imagine what it's like. It is impossible to empathize and understand fully what people have gone through and walk a mile in their shoes. And I will add, which is why we like these men turning into women, women turning into men. I'm a female. I can pretend that I think that it's what it's like to be a guy, but I'm not. I've never been a man. I've never had to be a man in society, so I don't know what it's like to be a man. I can only surmise. Just the way it is with people trying to understand what it's like to be a female. If you've never been a female, you can't understand what it's like being female. And the same goes for being a parent. Until you've actually conceived a child, held them in your womb for 9 months, felt them kicking, and birthed that child, nursed that child, you cannot even begin to understand what it's like to be maternal and have a child and what that bond is. You can't understand. There's no way for you to understand. You might empathize, you may pretend to think that you know by whatever you read in a book, but until you have experienced it, you don't know. The best that a friend or family member can do is sympathize with the target of U.S. mind control experiment subjects and all the torture and pseudo-terrorism that it entails. Or study history. Look at what happened to Julian Assange. He'll tell you what he experienced. I mean, everybody knows what happened in Auschwitz, right? History tends to repeat itself. And just remember where all those Nazi scientists went. No, we didn't put them in prison. No, we gave them jobs here. Yeah, we did. We gave them jobs here. The Witness Protection Program. Most people are just too busy providing for their families and themselves to care or realize that this is happening to people all around the world. They're distracted by relaxing and useless information on TV. All large truths are slowly understood by the masses, although people are waking up now. So again, this is 10 years ago, and people are waking up. That's why they didn't vote for the camel toe. Just saying. Sorry, guys. I guess you know who I voted for. Remember, before this happened to you, what did you believe? And how would you view someone who told you about what was happening to you? Absolutely right. I was painfully ignorant. I was too busy with my own life to really know. Not that I was not aware of conspiracies, but I was apolitical. I didn't vote, didn't watch TV, don't smoke or do drugs. I didn't care. I did not even, I think I've mentioned this before. I had no idea what the FBI or CIA did for a living. I actually had to buy a book before I left Manalapan. I bought a book on the CIA when I was horrified. I was absolutely horrified. In about 20 to 50 years, society will believe it was being done like the slaughter of the Indians for their land. Well, that I know about. But they will believe that they are a moral and good society then. It took hundreds of years to make most of humankind believe that the earth isn't flat. Will it ever end? There are very few TIs that have had it end completely. With the negativity of the synthetic telepathy, the best that a current TI can expect is to find some relief. The game is for the human animal to understand the technology completely, and therefore it has little effect on their psychology. A plaque inside of the CIA's Langley building states, quote, "Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free," unquote. more you understand about the psychological war games that are being played with you, the target, the less effect it has. There is dampening shielding, which works a little bit, but there are more advanced methods that can give relief that require active electronic jamming. The FCC will have a field day when we release these technologies, and they will have to start arresting people who are seeking relief from government radar torture. Again, this was 10 years ago. Others have been released from the torture and brainwashing programs due to developing advanced techniques and collecting evidence that may be acceptable in court. See? That's what happens. Generally, the blogs and forums will never hear from these people once they're released from the mind control programs and begin to rebuild their lives. It is human nature to repress such horrific memories. And I believe that's why we don't hear from certain people anymore. Although some of them were actually agents. Don't believe that this world domination strategy and control over the entire world population will stop due to some congressional investigation. It didn't stop after the church hearings. Presidents and Congress are not in control. The agencies are quite willing to lie to the American people how far this has gone and how many egregious mistakes they have made to justify their budgets. No one can do an independent cost-benefit analysis without being labeled a whistleblower or traitor. And this is a weird question. Should I get life insurance? Oh my goodness. This is a difficult question for many TIs. On the one hand, they feel they're going to be killed quickly and want to leave something for their families, but many TIs get paranoid that the people doing this to them took out life insurance policies on them, and that is why they're slowly killing them. This is very improbable since only government has access to mind control technologies for the most part, and this is usually just another stress and typical paranoia induction into the target. The brain searches for reasons why these government-sponsored serial killers and torturers are doing it to them. The reasons are much more complex than the average person can understand, and people have trouble with being part of a random sample of such horrendous manipulation. Other TIs have taken out million-dollar life insurance policies on themselves to donate to a TI foundation for research and shielding and political activism. It provides a sense of justice and changing the world even after one's death. Why don't people believe me? Well, if you just listen to what I just read, it's kind of hard to believe, right? This is the most frequent complaint of new TIs, especially those with V2K, voice to skull. What is so obvious to the target cannot even be fathomed by those who have not been put through the programs. It is like trying to explain the rainbow to a completely colorblind person. It's not possible. They're not wired for those perceptions. Plus, they're scared that maybe they will be indoctrinated and tortured too if they do believe. It is like asking someone to believe in a different god or country. People will not give up their worldview, the beliefs and sample points of their life experiences that shape their reality. Like I said, ignorance is bliss. Additionally, the average person does not have the desire to learn physics, understand the diabolical underside of something they want to have pride in, nor the time or in their busy lives to do it. Many people just give up and say the common man can't change anything. It's just easier for the average person to say the TI is crazy, and then the TI is out of frustration says that those who do not believe or research are ignorant or dumb. Name calling doesn't achieve anything. Most people strive for mediocrity and have the need to be herded, thereby flocking to the common sports team, political party, political belief, or such fads. And I just have to say for the record, I have never been one of those people. I just never have. If there was a fad or whatever, and everybody dressed like this one way, I wanted to dress the opposite way. That's it. Unfortunately, the CIA has been very good at promoting conspiracy theorists as crazy. So the theorist's testimony is not pondered by the general public. Practical advice is to show people documents, but don't flood them with information. Don't get frustrated with the person that doesn't not believe you. What is your goal to get them to believe? Do you want sympathy or someone to listen to you? That is what psychologists are paid for. There's nothing your friends and family can do for you, and the stranger simply won't care and then distance themselves from you. Is there a way off this torture, and organized stalking list? Not unless you're a famous politician, but you would not have been put in the mind control and behavior modification list while you serve the public, most likely. This is not to say that politicians are not subconsciously mind controlled by remote neuromonitoring and influence. It just means that they're not made aware of it. Clearly, this is technology. Clearly, this technology can be used to determine who gets elected in a so-called democracy. Interesting. Be careful. Several TIs have fallen for a trick. They're told through synthetic telepathy that if they pay $10,000 or more at some location like a garbage can, they will be released. This is part of the program to deplete a target's finances. One cannot buy their way out of these government behavior modification, torture, and unaliving programs. You can't buy your way out of it. Should I trust doctors? Just like in any profession, there are good ones and bad ones. Use doctors recommended by friends. Be realistic of what they can and cannot do for you. Private doctors are preferred over state-affiliated ones like the VA. You really have no choice but to try some of the solutions that modern medicine offers. This advice has been given throughout this book. Even chemicals can alter the effectiveness of electromagnetic technology. Chemicals. It is TI's fears that tell them that the doctor will implant them again or give them deadly drugs. This is rarely the case, and it doesn't hurt to try new things. Also, not all pains and problems are due to the Satan weapon system, SATAN. Don't give the mind hackers more power than they actually have. Don't blame everything on technology. Don't give the program more power than they have. It's a common belief that technological induced symptoms cannot be helped with medicine. So you hear that, guys. You go to the doctor, you complain about these problems, they give you a fix, and it's not going to work. And that's why the general public is painfully unaware that they're being targeted. Go to doctors, take medicine, then more on top of it. The body is an electromagnetic chemical. The body is in an electromagnetic chemical reaction. Yes. Chemicals like drugs can help the body and is used as countermeasures to electromagnetically induced problems. Drugs can be used to affect a body's electrochemical processes. And this is for educational purposes only. I'm reading a book written by a doctor. A Dr. Robert Duncan. They too. One TI went to see 2 psychologists and 4 psychiatrists and told them the same story and brought some literature on the topic. One of the psychologists and one psychiatrist believed the story. One psychologist diagnosed... Here you go. I believe it. One psychologist diagnosed the TI as schizoaffective. One psychiatrist diagnosed the TI as bipolar. Another psychiatrist diagnosed the TI as a mixed state, and yet another diagnosed the TI as schizophrenic. Obviously, depending on what the TI is looking for as a diagnosis, it depends on the doctor. If it's for a court case, the TI should shop around to prove their sanity. If they're looking to be classified as disabled, they may want another diagnosis. When doctors misdiagnose a patient, it is called the Marcia-Mitchell effect. No matter how outrageous their story, it ends up being true. The Marcia-Mitchell effect. Should I go to the police or FBI? Okay, this is what Duncan says. He says, well, you may be locked up for 72 hours if you tell your story. The police usually give a psychological evaluation for such claims. Don't fall for it. They don't have the authority to stop it, or the technical or psychological warfare education to understand it. In this chess game, who are the kings and the queens? You should be asking. No local or state judge can stop this level of covert warfare on the world's population. But hey, they can stop the home break-ins and the trespassing and the littering and the stalking. And that is their jobs to do that. So if you're not investigating home break-ins, coppers, if you're not investigating trespassing, if you're not investigating felony stalking, then you're in violation of your oath. Just saying. I've never reported, ever, and I never will, report being assaulted by their weapons. Although, check out a week ago on Halloween what my criminal ass neighbors posted opposite my property. That's right. What do they call them? The Hillbilly Mafia. And they wrote on big bold print, DEW, D-E-W, directed at my property with a satellite dish. That's right. They thought it was funny. You ever hear about the truth being said in jest? Yeah. Anyway, you may be locked up for 72 hours if you tell your story. No local or state judge can stop this level of covert warfare on the world's population. Be realistic. There are people who operate above the law and have a license to unalive you. And the license is in quotes. Actually, I can't, I'm not going to be able to read this next paragraph because it has to do with something that would be provided by a medical doctor to help you. I'm not going to be able to read this either. Should I believe what the voices tell me? Almost never. The devil always lies is a good motto. There is part of the mind control experiments. Make the target believe almost anything is the goal. Unless you have been subjected to these brainwashing and programming technologies, it is difficult to understand how powerful they are. In 60 years of development, the technologies and tactics have nearly been perfected, but you won't hear about it in the mass media. Every country controls their mass media to program the simple people. Humans create their reality by sample points of information that they're given. So if you're listening to the news and it's not spoken about in the news, you're not going to believe that it exists. They're not telling you about it. There's a problem in logic with always lying, and the programmers are figuring it out. If they always lie, then you can deduce information with the negative logic. They can't do random because the target can figure out when they're lying or telling the truth using emotional feedback loops. Obviously, they can't always tell the truth because then their game will more quickly be learned by society and the target. Their game. It's a friggin' game to these people. It's a game. It's a kind of poker game. You must figure out when the opponent is lying. The practical advice is just throw out all the information if the V2K TI can. They can gain the trust of the TI by initially using feedback on what the TI is doing at the moment. Once the trust is gained, the deception begins. Should I tell my family and friends what is happening to me? This is a difficult situation to avoid. It is such a life-changing experience that you, the target, have difficulty believing that the people closest to you can't believe you, and tens of thousands of others' testimony. There's a trade-off by doing this. Your family will first believe that a mental illness has taken hold. Well, I'll tell you that my mother actually believed me. She actually believed me. How could she not believe me? She birthed me. She's known me for all of those years. She knows that I'm practical. She knows my house. She knew that I renovated the house, right? She knew that I planted everything that was growing in the yard. She knew it all. And for her to come in and see what was happening to the house, she absolutely knew what was going on. She actually witnessed. She witnessed my perpetrator neighbors signaling people down the block after I drove out to go grocery shopping. My mother just happened to walk outside at that very moment and witness the whole thing. The whole little skit. There's a trade-off. Your family will first believe that it's a mental illness taking hold. A certain percentage will be believed, but at a cost. Their family will worry and empathize with the target's suffering. And that's true. My mother did worry all the time. They will not be able to do anything about it. Sympathy feels good for the target, but it's not productive for their social networks. Do you want your mother to cry over your suffering? Do you want many of your friends to decide you're crazy or scare them that they will be next if they talk to you? Most friends will run and distance themselves from the target. The target will believe that it's a slander campaign being done, but it is what they said to their friends that causes the reactions. These are the decisions you must make. Damned if you do and damned if you don't. Are there support groups for what I'm going through? He says, and I believe him here, I don't recommend many support groups because TIs get sucked into the addiction of drama on the hundreds of internet groups. I absolutely hate those groups, I'm telling you. Many of the others get the victims addicted to lies and drama like a soap opera, and they can never escape. Negativity becomes an addiction for some people. Misery loves company. It's not good for the psychological health. And plus, a lot of people on those calls are just infiltrators. They're not targeted people. They're disruptors. They're provocateurs. Just like we sometimes have in the comment sections of our channel. Right? Surround yourself with positive people, and mostly non-TIs if you want to feel better about the world. That's why I watch a lot of animal videos. They actually lift my spirit. And music. It is costly to undo the damage of many trolls surfing the internet. Oh yeah, I had one for a whole year. I'm not even going to mention his name. Everybody knows what that primate's name is, right? The anger and bipolarism that is induced into many TIs creates strife of hatred